Hi, welcome to Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Program is Focal Point. The network is the American Family Radio Talk Network. One other comment on the issue of homosexuality, and this is an amazing thing to me. I've got in front of me a story from the National Journal published over the weekend, and this is an 11-page story. And it is on the subject of sexual assault in the military. It's 11 pages, stories about sexual assault in the military. Now, story after story about women in the military being subjects of sexual assault. Now, this goes back to something I've said repeatedly. It's a mistake to have women in uniform. They don't have the size, they don't have the strength, they don't have the stamina. They're not designed by God for military service. They're not designed for combat. They're not designed to carry heavy loads. So God just didn't design them for it. They should not be a part of the military. Now, they can obviously serve in support roles, as they have historically in the United States military. But in terms of being in uniform, combat fatigues, trained to use weapons and all that, they can't even throw a grenade far enough to keep from blowing themselves up criminally. So the whole issue, I've got a couple of stories about how we deal with this issue of sexual assault in the military. Well, number one, let's not have women in the military. And number two, let's not have gays in the military. So you've got this enormous problem, 20,000 victims of sexual assault every year in the United States military. Women being victimized by male predators. Maybe in some cases they're lesbian assaults, so it's not broken down. But here's the thing. You have, of the 19,000, listen to this. This will knock your socks off, and it will verify every single thing we said about removing the ban on homosexuals in the military. This is one of the things that we predicted. We said, look, this will happen. It will skyrocket because of the kind of sexual activity that takes place in the homosexual community. It's frequent. It's anonymous. It's aggressive. It is promiscuous. So expect to see just a skyrocketing increase in the number of male-on-male sexual assaults. It's happened. It's now happened. Listen to this. This is buried on the bottom of page 5 of this 11-page article. In fact, it's in parentheses. Listen to this from the National Journal, which is an uber left-wing publication. Although uniformed women are sexually assaulted at a higher rate than men, listen to this, the total number of male victims is actually higher because there are so many more men in uniform. Of the 19,000 estimated assaults every year, more than 11,000 target men. So that is your Fisher factoid of the day. Right there it is, verifying everything we said about the repeal of the ban on homosexuals in the military. And this is why, by the way, that it'd be a complete catastrophe if the Boy Scouts repealed their ban on homosexual scouts. Because what the vote's going to be next week is whether to allow homosexual scouts. Are the Boy Scouts going to allow an active 17-year-old male to sleep in the same tent with your 11-year-old son? They're getting ready to say that's perfectly fine. We are okay with that. We got no hitch with that whatsoever. Well, they're going to have the same kind of problems that the military's had. So 19,000 sexual assaults every year in the military. 11,000 of those victims are men being sexually assaulted by other men. Maybe there's a rare case of a female officer imposing herself on a male subordinate, but that'd be single digits, I'm sure. So 19,000 victims of sexual assault in the military every year. 11,000 of them, the majority, are men who are being sexually assaulted by homosexual males. So it's exactly what we talked about. So, I mean, that to me is an astonishing figure. I mean, it's not unexpected. I just didn't expect to see the numbers this bad. It's far worse than I imagined. So again, 19,000 sexual assaults in the military every year, 11,000 of those victims are males who are being sexually assaulted in the military by other males. So that is the Fisher factoid of the day. So no women in the military, no gays in the military. Your sexual assault problem goes away. If they're going to assault somebody, they're going to have to do it off base. They're going to be charged by local criminal authorities. It's not going to be a drain on the resources or the morale or the personnel of the United States military. Again, wow. That's just an astounding figure to me. More male victims of sexual assault than female right now in the United States military. Well, let's take some phone calls. Let's go. Well, I guess we won't take. Let's talk about Gosnell. The verdict is in the Gosnell trial. And let me see if I can make sure I've got accurate information. He's been found guilty, Jeff, did you say, of 3 murder accounts? So he's been found guilty of 3 murder accounts, first-degree murder, and let me see if and for killing 3 live babies. Involuntary manslaughter is the conviction for the death of one of the mothers who was just drugged up to her eyeballs, basically killed by anesthesia administered under his direction by somebody who was not medically trained. Let me see if I can call up the story on this. So guilty on 3 murder 1 accounts, involuntary manslaughter for the woman. This is from Breitbart, Associated Press actually. Philly abortion doctor guilty in 3 babies' deaths. Philadelphia doctor accused of performing illegal late-term abortions in a filthy clinic has been found guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of 3 babies born alive, but acquitted in the death of a 4th baby, also found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the overdose of a patient. Now, remember what Gosnell did is these babies would be delivered alive, and then he would actually decapitate them internally, sever their spinal columns, separate the spinal column from the skull. That's internal decapitation. So there are more than that. I mean, he did this to 100 babies. I think he was charged with the murders of 7 babies. They did find enough evidence to convict him on 3 of those. They evidently were hung on 2 of the more than 200 accounts that were involved in the case. But certainly enough here. And, if there was ever a case that deserved the death penalty, and I do not know, Jeff, and I don't know if you know where the death penalty is. The jury, prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. I'm not sure if the jurors then are going to have a death penalty phase or a penalty phase. Do you have any idea on that, Jeff? Okay, we'll see if we can find out. Okay. Yeah, then Fox has got a big headline, convicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder. So that's an update, certainly a justifiable verdict if ever there was one. 888-589-8840, number to call if you want to join the program. Let's go to Kathy in North Carolina. Kathy, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Good show.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled over that verdict. That's great.
Boy, that's good news, isn't it? Because that's justice. What we care about is justice. You take the life of an innocent human being in America, you should pay for that.
Yes, justice and truth, and that's the underlying problem of all of these problems. Benghazi, the IRS, Obamacare, everything. The underlying problem is untruth. So why can't Congress, they pass the laws, make it a federal crime, a felony, for any elected official to deliberately lie to the American people? That gives them some wiggle room, the word deliberately. So that and make them serve 20 years automatically.
Well, you know what they're thinking, and I don't know, Kathy, if there'd be any way to enforce something like that. But the Republicans have proposed in this IRS case. They have proposed a law that would send an IRS agent to jail if they engage in a politically motivated audit, and I think that actually would have some effect because IRS agents might think, well, they're never going to use it. They're never going to prosecute anybody on this. It's too murky. But I guarantee you that would scare a lot of people straight. They would say, like, I'm just not going to take the chance. Let Leroy, if somebody's going to go after this guy on a tax audit, I think it's politically motivated. I'm not touching it. I'll let Leroy take the risk, and they may not be able to find anybody that would actually go after somebody on a tax audit. Now, what Hillary Clinton did, when she testified at Congress, Kathy, and this may be of interest to you, she was not under oath. I don't believe that she was sworn in for that testimony, but it is a crime to lie to Congress. You can be found in contempt of Congress. Now, I don't know that they can imprison you. I don't know what they can do to you, but that is a criminal activity to lie to Congress. And if you lie under oath, which I don't think she was, if you lie under oath and commit perjury, I mean, people go to prison for that. President Clinton was disbarred for his crime of lying under oath. All right, Kathy, thanks for the call. Let's grab a call from Ruth in Tampa, Florida. Ruth, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
A few weeks ago, I called and asked support for a measure in the Florida legislature to save unborn babies. And thanks be to God, that measure was passed. It now requires health providers to provide emergency and medical care to an infant who survives a failed abortion or face criminal charges. So if anyone listening, responded to my request, to support these bills in the House and Senate, thank you.
Well, thank you, Ruth, and I just appreciate you being on that, and thanks for calling to give us a follow-up. And that's great news. That's another winnable war moment for the day. This bill passing the Florida legislature requires a baby survives an abortion attempt, requires that baby to get medical care, medical attention. So great news, Ruth. Thank you for that. That's a winnable war moment. And this is that we played you the soundbite from the lobbyist for Planned Parenthood. Remember that soundbite? We played two of them. She was asked by these legislators in a committee hearing, what happens, what do you think should happen to a baby that's born alive in a Planned Parenthood clinic that survives an abortion attempt? Now remember, this is a baby. It's a newborn infant. It's separate from the mother. It's a United States citizen. And she said, well, whether that baby lives or dies ought to be up to the parent and the doctor. Whether that baby gets any medical treatment or is just allowed to expire in a corner of the clinic, that's up to the mother and the doctor. That's Planned Parenthood basically supporting infanticide. Focal Point AFR Talk back in 2.